Did you see? Did you see the clip where Biden tripped and fell over a sandbag on stage at the Air Force Academy graduation in Colorado yesterday?
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjakovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Freedom Friday. So the big topic of the week is the debt ceiling update. And so Stephanie and I are just going to give you an update on what is going on so far. So McCarthy and Biden came to a compromise to suspend our $31.4 trillion debt ceiling for 2 years. It's going to be extended through January 1st of 2025. And just for some quick fun fact info, this will be the 7th time that the debt ceiling has been suspended since 2013. And the debt ceiling has actually been raised 78 times since 1960. So no wonder we're in so much fucking debt. But what does suspending the debt ceiling mean? So I read an article in the Epic Times that described it perfectly, and it says, quote, "A suspension of the debt ceiling is different from an increase as the agreement is limited by time, not the dollar amount of the U.S. debt. Under this provision, the Treasury Secretary can borrow as much as necessary to pay interest on the national debt and carry out the spending initiatives approved by Congress." So basically what this means is that Congress is going to be able to pay their bills on time and not default for the next 19 months. And then the debt ceiling will become the problem for whoever wins the 2024 presidential election.
Yeah, I heard McCarthy on one of the shows he was doing an interview on, and he was comparing it to parents giving their college kid a credit card. And then the kid goes and maxes it out and can't make the payments and like just only pay the interest. And then the parent says, "Oh, that's okay. We'll just raise the credit limit." Like, that's how absurd this is. You wouldn't do that. Like, any reasonable person would instead curb spending and focus on paying off the debt. So, like, this is exactly why I don't trust politicians, because they have no business sense and they're running our country. It's really scary.
They are running it into the ground.
Yeah.
And so this quote compromise that they're doing is in the form of a bill called the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023, which makes me laugh because it's really fiscal irresponsibility. But on Wednesday, the House approved a rule limiting debate and barring any amendments to the bill, and it was a bipartisan vote of 241 to 187. And then later that night, the bill was approved by the House in a final vote of 314 to 117. And even though the bill was backed by a majority of GOP leaders, it was really the 160 Democrat votes that pushed and carried the bill, because there were apparently dozens of conservative Republicans that voted against it. And now the bill is in the hands of the Senate, and they apparently have a deadline of June 5th to approve it. And of course, Biden is urging them to pass it as quickly as possible to prevent defaulting, which frankly is rich coming from the man who refused to do any negotiations for months. So let's talk real quick about what this agreement includes. What does this mean for the American people? So there is a $1 billion cut to non-defense discretionary spending in 2024, which is really nothing. It's about 0.2% of the budget. And then there's going to be a 1% increase in non-defense discretionary spending in 2025. There will be no decrease in military spending, but there will be non-defense veteran programs that are going to be reduced to 2022 levels. This also includes revising the process for obtaining permits to drill for oil and natural gas. And they're doing this by creating a lead agency that's going to manage the process and ensure that it's completed in under 2 years. And again, that's just for obtaining permits, not for doing any actual drilling, which is right in line with the government of taking 2 years to approve something. Another thing the agreement includes is adjusting the age limit for work requirements for SNAP. So SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and the current age limit is 50, and they're going to up that to 54, which basically means that any able-bodied non-parents, so able-bodied single people who are receiving SNAP, now they have to be up to 54 years old. They'll need to work 20 hours a week in order to get these SNAP benefits. But this requirement isn't happening overnight, and it's going to be phased in over a 3-year period. And the exemption to this is going to be veterans, homeless people, and people who were in foster care as children, which I think that one's kind of odd, but okay. There will be no changes to Medicaid. And then there will be a recovery of 20 billion of the 80 billion that was allocated for IRS funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, but that's going to be divided into 10 billion a year over each year, and that money will go into other non-defense discretionary categories. So it's not the entire 80 billion that, we think is funding all those extra IRS agents, but it's just going to be a quarter of that. And then there's something called COVID clawbacks, which means that the $30 billion in unspent COVID-19 relief funds is going to be taken back from the states. And then this bill is also requiring that Congress produces a timely 2024 budget, meaning that if Congress doesn't pass all 12 of the appropriations bills that are required to ratify a federal budget by the end of the fiscal year, the budget will be reduced to below 2023 levels. So those are the major things with this bill. And according to McCarthy, quote, "This is an agreement in principle that's worthy of the American people," end quote, because there's not going to be new taxes and there's not going to be any new government programs. So, Stephanie, do you think that this agreement is worthy of the American people?
No, not at all. Not even close.
Right.
But I was listening to an interview with Congressman James Comer, and he was basically explaining that this is the best they can do at this point because the House is only 1/3 of the equation. So when you have a Democrat-led Senate and White House, obviously compromises have to be made. And you have a freaking dipshit president that refused 4 months to negotiate, to even sit down with McCarthy. So I get that. And the alternative is defaulting, which basically means China would own us. So what's frustrating is that McCarthy had said that for months he was talking about this. If they would just go back to the pre-COVID spending before the pandemic hit, it would drastically reduce the debt and they wouldn't have to keep raising the debt ceiling. And the Republicans did put a bill together, but again, Democrats and Biden wouldn't even look at it, not even sit down with him to discuss anything. So when you wait till the last minute to see who will flinch, no one ends up happy, and the issue just keeps getting pushed off. Like you said, they're just going to push it off to the next presidential election and have the next, president deal with it. So anyhow, back to that interview with James Comer, he said that they're going to take a look at the budget appropriations in October to cut budgets. And I hope they do, because I was reading an article that I found in the New York Post where Adam Andrzejewski, founder of the nonprofit American Transparency, highlights some of the most ridiculous spending. And I mean, you could write a whole book on the ridiculous spending, but I'm just going to give you a few examples. Okay. The government sent nearly $500,000 to a college in Portland to pay for pigeon slot machines. Yes, you heard that correctly. The college is creating a casino for pigeons to study the addictiveness of gambling. So obviously there's a bunch of wasteful spending, and we had a bunch of it during COVID. One example from the pandemic was that they sent $7 million to fake farms that were completely made up, that had no actual location. And Tara, you're going to love this one. Our government is spending $500,000 on turning monkeys trans. So apparently this is happening in Florida, which kind of surprised me. But a Florida lab is dosing male monkeys with feminizing hormones intent on turning them trans. The experiment, funded by Dr. Anthony Fauci's National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, aims to figure out why male to female transgender humans suffer high levels of HIV infection. So if it can't get any more ridiculous, our government sent almost $7 million to Stanford University to build an artificially intelligent toilet system that literally films your butt. And apparently this is for cancer research. So, like, these are just a couple of obviously extreme examples, but like, this is what our government is spending money on. There's so much wasteful spending that can completely be cut out. And that is what this nonprofit does. They look at the books and they point out some of this ridiculous spending. And they also pointed out that in a March report from the Government Accountability Office, they tallied $281 billion in improper and mistaken payments in 2021 alone. So, no, Tara, I don't think that this is a win for the American people. I think there needs to be a complete overhaul of these budgets, or we're going to be in big trouble.
Okay, Stephanie, like I'm trying to come to terms with the shit you just said because I honestly have no words for the absurdity of our government spending. And I'm sorry, anything that has Dr. Fauci's name on it is a fucking red flag. So
Exactly.
yeah, and you've got like, oh, come on, there are millions of families that are still struggling with inflation and they're just trying to survive. But hey, let's focus on getting pigeons addicted to gambling. Like, what the fuck?
Right?
And like, if we are going to end up going to war, which seems more likely than not, our economy is going to be even more screwed. But hey, the direction that we're going in as a country, we just may be run by AI chatbots and apparently trans monkeys here soon anyway. So speaking of trans, Stephanie, isn't Target on the hook now for like billions of dollars for that whole tuck-friendly bathing suit and trans clothes kid campaign?
Oh, yeah. Their stock is completely tanking. What number did I look up earlier today? It was like $14 billion down or something in stock in a week. And so like they are just it's getting really bad. People are sticking to it. They're not shopping at Target. And what is so wild, I just found this out today, is that this guy made a rap song called Boycott Target, and it is number one on the Apple charts, beating out like Nicki Minaj. Okay. All
Wow.
for boycotting Target. And I was like, this just goes to show how many people are standing up for what's right and are totally against this craziness that the world is giving into. Do you want to hear a snippet of the song?
I do because I have not heard this.
Okay, let's play it.
Jenner, I'm only working with Bruce, don't work with no Caitlyn Jenner. You think that gay shit don't get you paid? Yeah, we gonna see. It's my life, it's one if I was trumpet, baby. They couldn't talk it on my back, but they targeting your kids. They don't even need to ask, cause you wonder what it is. Yeah, that's why I keep a strap, and I'm always on my pants. If the agenda gotta stop, yeah, you know we're gonna win.
Target on your back because they're targeting your kids. Pretty
Wow.
pretty good
Okay.
lyrics, huh?
Wow. And that is the number one song. That says a lot. That says a lot for how the people feel.
Right? I mean, my God, like we can hit the top of the Apple charts for speaking out against this stuff. Come on. This is crazy.
Okay. So I have to ask you this before we end anything. Did you see did you see the clip where Biden tripped and fell over a sandbag on stage at the Air Force Academy graduation in Colorado yesterday?
Yes. I laughed. I laughed for like 20 minutes because like that wasn't like a trip. That was like a face plant.
Yes.
It was so bad. Oh my God. It was so embarrassing.
It was like a face plant with a side roll. I mean,
Yeah.
it's bad. And like, how many times has this man fallen on camera? Like, I'm clumsy and I have a history of falls, but nothing like this. Like, he cannot climb a flight of stairs on a plane to a plane. Like, how many falls and stumbles has he had trying to board Air Force One? There's been at least four. There was the one back in 2021, that like most infamous one. And then it happened again in May of 2022 when he was leaving Andrews Air Force Base and going to Illinois. And then this past February, the same thing when he was leaving Poland. And then a couple
Don't
months
forget
ago,
when he fell off his bike too.
well, yeah, but I mean, this is just the stairs. Like, this is just plane stairs. It happened again in March. He was boarding a flight from Alabama to Delaware. Like, he clearly can't navigate stairs. Like you said, he can't ride a bike on flat pavement. He can't walk across the stage without looking lost and confused. Like, I don't know if you saw what happened on Memorial Day, but like, it was fucking disgraceful. It was the I think 155th Memorial Day observance at Arlington National Cemetery. And it's like the ceremony they do every year. And he was fucking yawning during the ceremony and shuffling through the place. He looked totally confused. It was clear he had like no idea where to stand. There was like this whole ceremonial thing where they turn and then they stand in a line. And he's just like looking around and has no idea what's going on. And then he couldn't figure out how to salute or when to salute. I mean, it's all on video and it's completely like mortifying and disgraceful. And you know, if any other president did this, they would be crucified. But as usual, like Biden gets a pass for everything. And then like the White House insists that he's like as spry and energetic as ever. And it's like such a fucking joke. Like we are literally a joke nation. It's absolutely insane.
It's like completely avoiding the elephant in the room. Like obviously everyone knows, but they refuse to acknowledge it. And that I feel like that just makes it worse. You know what I mean? Like if they at least said like he's older and he's got some health issues, that would be better than just completely ignoring it and acting like he's some young spring chicken.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And then like nothing ever happens to this guy. And then I don't know, I'm assuming you probably saw this as well. Like FBI Director Wray recently actually admitted and confirmed that there is a document alleging Biden engaged in this criminal bribery scheme with the foreign national. Like it's real, but what's going to come of that? Nothing, because this man is like fucking Teflon. Like nothing sticks to him and he's slippery as fuck. And that's probably why he falls.
Oh my God. I've never heard someone describe someone as Teflon. That's freaking hilarious. Well, okay. I know I'm like so naive, but I'm just so hopeful, but I know nothing's going to happen. But James Comer was saying that they're going to hold him in contempt, right? So then he contacted James Comer and was like, okay, we do have the document and I'll show it to you, but you have to come alone and get like checked in and do it like in this secret room. And so Comer came back and was like, no, like you either show it to Congress or you're going to be held in contempt. So I'm still holding out a little bit of hope that the Republicans like have somewhat of a backbone or at least like a few of them to do this. But you're probably right. Like the guy's freaking Teflon.
Yeah, because so what? Even if Ray is held in contempt, is anything going to happen with Biden?
No.
Like, let's be real. No.
Yeah, probably not. Well, we'll have to keep everyone updated on that. And if Biden falls again or says something stupid, who knows? I'm sure it'll happen by next Friday. Yeah, it's so funny. Like this isn't even Weird Wednesday, but there's so much like weird stuff we have to keep up on it, you know?
And then we'll see if the Senate does approve this suspended debt ceiling, which I can't imagine they're not going to. I mean, I think it's pretty much a done deal, but there are some Republican senators who are saying they will not vote for it.
So I feel like it's Groundhog Day because they always do this. They always say like, we're not going to approve it. And then like in the 11th hour, they approve it. The only thing that makes me think they might not is what they did with McCarthy, like where they refused and it went through 10 rounds of votes. So there's some people in there that like won't back down. So we'll see. But I am betting it'll get approved because no one wants to be owned by China, you know?
Right. Even more so than we are, you mean?
Even more so than already. Or should we say owned by BlackRock or whatever? Because it's all the same shit, right? Yep. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, that's what's happening in the world right now. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great weekend and we'll see you back here for our Motivation Monday. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you get our latest episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you could, please rate and review the show. We are going to be reading every single review, and I would love it if you hopped over to Instagram at Unapologetically Outspoken and say hi. We want to see who's out there and start a conversation, plus get all of the topics that you want us to talk about next. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.